We are live at the Matsu's School Borough Board Assembly today to discuss many different issues and topics. One of them is going to definitely be about the 50-50 split that they have proposed for schools this year. Don't forget to share. Facebook squeals on you if you don't share. They will be live here in a few more moments. They're just getting the final little stages of things set up to get done. We're here at the live at the Matsu School Borough Board School Assembly meeting for the school district and what the upcoming season is supposed to look like or proposed. Testimonies will be given tonight. I have posted phone numbers up on the top to be able to call in today and testify if you would like. They have extreme social distancing protocols going on here. I feel like I'm sitting in a church as quiet as it is. Nice to see a few people joining us already. Do not forget to share. What is happening here tonight has already happened in the Anchorage School District. They've already had this discussion there. It received very little publicity. I can tell by the post that I had posted earlier today about this event happening right now. Has received a lot of attention. It's reached over 6,000 people in just a 4-hour period of time, over 60 shares. This is an interest of anybody that has any children going to school this year. It is the future of whether or not you're going to be doing it online, or in school and online. And it sounds like they're going to begin.
Wednesday, June 17th, regular school board meeting for the Matsu School Board.
We have a quorum. Mr. Larson and Mr. Taylor are absent. Calling the roll for the rest. Mr. Burby.
Present.
Mr. Trimmer.
Here.
Mr. Ponder.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
And I am here.
Can you read both roles?
Matsu Borough School District Vision, Mission, Beliefs, Goals, and Principles. The vision. Matsu Borough School District will be a model of excellence in teaching, learning, and engaging all students. Mission. Matsu Borough School District prepares all students for success. Beliefs. We believe that the needs and best interests of students drive all decisions. All students can and want to learn. Educational choices and community participation are essential to student success. Goals. Improve student success, achievement, and performance. Develop excellent educators and leaders. Use innovative practices to improve the education system. Include families and community members in the education of our students. And promote safe and healthy environments for all. Our guiding principles will drive our decisions and our responsibility to our students, families, and community. These are stewardship, accountability, empathy, quality, integrity, respect, collaboration, and commitment.
Thank you. Mr. Potter, will you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Any objection? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, we have social distancing guidelines for school board meetings. guess we're all socially distanced. Thank you. Persons to be heard on non-agenda items. Member Walton, will you read the
Public comment pertaining to education on non-agenda items is limited to 3 minutes per person per meeting. There will be up to 1 hour for persons to be heard. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. This is your opportunity to be heard, and the board will not respond to your comments. As per Board Policy 1312, individuals testifying may not discuss complaints against individual employees. Specifically, under the agenda item persons to be heard on non-agenda items, the following guidelines apply. The speaker states his or her name for the record. The speaker is limited to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker is limited to non-agenda items. Agenda items will be open for public comment as they appear on the agenda. The speaker's comment should be appropriate for all audiences, including school-aged children. The speaker is limited to comments of a general nature, positive or negative, which may not be attributable to any specific individual. Issues involving concerns specific to any single individual should be submitted in writing and given to the board clerk to be resolved. The issue may be determined to be appropriate for persons to be heard, or may be handled in executive session, or may be routed through a more appropriate complaint process. No disturbance or willful interruption of any board meeting shall be permitted. Persistence by an individual or group shall be grounds for the chair to terminate the privilege of addressing the meeting. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. This is not a question and answer time. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or designee, or the board may take the issue under advisement. We have a maximum of 1 hour per meeting, and this is the first half hour. The second half hour takes place later in the meeting. On the list, I have Gavin Christensen.
Here.
Come up to the podium. There's a button to push, and then state your name.
Do I have to use the mic?
Yes, you have to. It's being recorded.
Push the red button.
Yeah. Should go green. Okay. State your
Okay.
name, and then you have 3 minutes.
Gavin Christensen. My first question is, do I have to apply everything that I called in on yesterday, or can I go? Thank you. So I have a couple concerns regarding the school district. And the first one is why the pandemic of COVID wasn't addressed by the emergency manager. Whether at the school district level, the state level, the federal level, whatever level you want to talk about, we understand that there's diseases. People plan for them. As a prior emergency manager, I did the disease containment plan. I worked with the school districts. I worked with the hospitals. And we planned for this. And this plan was not in place prior to the COVID. COVID was not the first pandemic that we faced as a nation, as a state, as a school district. We've had several prior to this. I can't even list off the full names. So that's the first concern that I have, is that it was not addressed at any level. So, but here obviously at the school board meeting, my level is that. The next one I'd like to address is accountability. You brought up, I believe it was in the board of the school board. I didn't catch the first part, and they mentioned accountability. And we're talking about accountability, but the fact is not all school board members are present here tonight. And that's kind of a big deal. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of parents. I understand that. We can't force the parents. But if the school board is going to talk about accountability and make decisions for our children, shouldn't they be here as well? I feel like that right there sets off a bad tone for the parents that are here. I missed the last one. I was given the wrong information, so I do apologize for that. Also, I was given information that tonight's meeting was supposed to be yesterday. So it does happen. I understand that. My next issue that I'd like to address, as I pull my notes, I'd like to address the school lunch program and breakfast. I'd like to address the fact that as COVID happens, children will need less food. They won't be in school that often. Where's that money going to go? Can we send money back? I understand that a lot of the programs are federally backed. Can we send that money back to the Fed so the money can be distributed somewhere else? Or reduce taxes? That'd be a great idea, but I understand if the taxes still happen, but we're not eating the food that costs the money, send it back. That is one of the number one issues that I've had with the government spending as a 20-year member of service of the government, is they have this use it or lose it mentality. If that gets stopped, we can start saving money. I understand the budget is on here. That is the number one concern of mine, is that mentality. Oh, my phone's, sorry. 40 seconds. The next one I'd like under that is the migrant education program. Given the difference between the migrant education program and kind of the low income standards, if you will, I would like to see that one pushed a whole lot further. I qualify for it, I use it, every Alaskan should. They should be out there hunting and fishing. My next two would be how we can reduce teachers over the next school year, or if we do distance learning and whatnot over the long term. And then lastly, one teacher had 160 students, 79 of them didn't do a single bit of distance learning work. That is not fair to those of us that are actually teaching our children. Thank you.
Next by telephone is Angela Camus. No, she's not here. She didn't call in. Michelle Stone.
Hello,
We can hear you. Please state your name and give your testimony.
my name is Michelle Stone. I'm here once again to speak on the issue of students getting into career tech. I would just like to start by saying how much Academy Charter has changed my children's lives. I can never thank the teachers and staff enough for what they do every day. My son, Blake Stone, started Academy in 5th grade. He attended Sheridan Swanson School. The No Child Left Behind was not teaching my son to his highest potential. At Academy, he has transitioned into an A student. He was chosen as a leader to represent his school for the honors flight for our veterans. He also met with our governor of Alaska. The meeting with Dunleavy had a huge impact on my son. Having respect and wanting to go to school to learn. He has worked hard to attend any school he wants, and he is more than deserving to attend career tech. He'd be a great candidate for student council. I also want to talk about my Cascade. She will be in 7th grade at Academy this year. She also is an A student working hard to have choices for her future. I would hate to see her not be able to attend a school she wants to go and learn at. My children started thinking of their futures at 12 years old. That's all because of Academy Charter School. And this is rare. I've had a chance to listen to the last few borough meetings, and as I understand it, the enrollment just keeps increasing. So all I think is solutions. We need solutions. What are the solutions? 3 portables. Will that get enough of those kids off that waiting list? With everything going on in the world presently, this would be a no-brainer to our principals before our personalities. Kids are attracted to career tech because they want to succeed with their like-minded fellow students. These peer groups are the future leaders of this community, investing time and money into a program that's already working. So more students succeed is a win-win for everyone. I realize that your jobs and your decisions you make are not always easy, but I think if we work together, even when our plates are full, to fix the problems, that we can come to a compromise that benefits the students. Just think, wouldn't it be nice to have parents coming into these meetings thanking you for your efforts? I'd like to thank you for your effort. Have a good evening.
That is all that I have on my list. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Come to the front.
Good evening, my name is Melody McCullough. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight and let my voice be heard. I'm here to talk about 50-50 schooling. I'm understanding that the school district is looking at 50-50 schooling, which is 1 week on in school, 1 week off, remote schooling. The reason why I'm not in favor of this is because you are not giving parents that cannot homeschool a choice. You are forcing us to homeschool our kids twice a month throughout the school year. Parents that homeschool have had a choice to do so. However, the parents of children that want to send their kids to school, depending on what school is going to look like, because nobody seems to know, are being forced to homeschool at least, like I said, twice a month. We all know that the Matsu Borough School District knows they're going to lose students over this COVID stuff. There's going to be less numbers in the schools. Here's some questions the parents have. One, how is 50-50 school going to affect children that have a home with two working parents? Two, how is it going to affect the children that have a household where abuse and neglect run rampant? Three, how will this affect the single parent who works two jobs just to provide for their family? Number four is most important to me, children with IEP, where services were not given, but federal monies were still received by the school district during COVID distance learning. Five, how will this affect my senior at Career Tech High School who needs to be in a classroom setting to be able to ask a question, get an immediate answer, not having to wait for an email response, sometimes days to answer one question? How about routine and consistency for these kids, especially the ones that have a hard time with change? My children are two of those. What is in school going to look like for the students? Will it be institutionalized isolation? Institutionalized isolation, I'm sorry. Results of the parent survey stated that 99% of the parents want their kids in school full time. And all of these should be considered when deciding on what school will look like. I cannot imagine the mental health effects on these kids that will be graduates and productive members of society. In closing, what I would like to see is parents who are being given a choice, having a say in what's best for their child and their children and their parenting or education. We, the parents, want to be heard and want to be given a voice, not a survey to say how our children will be educated. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, I'm Mike Devine, and my wife and I, Amy, have 8 children. 5 have graduated school, 3 left in school, and we got a senior coming up at Wasilla High. The reason I'm talking, we're trying to my son that's a senior, going to be a senior this year. We got word from the head coach at our school that they can't have any types of basketball practice or anything like that. That's together. Not until July, but in July they can actually go to the gym as long as they all have their own basketball and maintain social distancing at 6 feet. And if someone else touches their basketball, then they're going to have to sanitize the basketball. Sports are very important to my family. In fact, there's thousands of kids that play sports in the school district. And there are some kids who have a shot to go on and earn academics or scholarships in basketball, football, volleyball, wrestling, all those sports. And one of the things that I see happening is this is the detriment of a lot of kids. And we have a lot of kids over our house all the time. And I have not had any parents tell me ever that they're worried about their kids going to our house. We have a lot of children in our house. And I think everyone's kind of over it. And my big concern is, I think what's pushing all this is not families, it's not kids that are worried about getting COVID. Because if you look nationally, kids typically aren't affected very deep. There's been very few deaths across the country with it. And now I'm worried, then, because this person I heard about this 1 week on, 1 week off, and that is not healthy for kids to be out of school. And so my ask is somehow we get consistent in what's happening at each school in our school district, because I've heard some schools are not necessarily following the same guidelines as our school. And we're told us what the school has. That doesn't seem right either. I would say open it up, let it be a parent's choice. I think most parents that I know are pretty smart people, and if they are truly concerned about it, let it be their choice. If there's something we need to sign, you bet, let us sign it. Because I understand there are people that might get sick and are worried about getting someone else in their house sick. Well, then let that get to the family. But to make this a sweeping thing for every school, every kid in the school district. I don't think is right. And I think it's really detrimental to our children's education. In fact, I think one of the things you said in the opening statement was that, what did you say? You said something about how this is so essential and important to our kids and this after-school activities and in their growth. And I just hate to see that go away. So we could really come up with a plan for our kids for sports and get us going back to school as normal. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Is there anybody else?
My name is Laura Brockman, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I want to first say thank you to our district just for the work that you did in getting our kids educated to the best of your ability during this time. For my family, I have two boys who are 8th graders this year. They'll be freshmen next year. They both experienced it very differently. And one of the things that you listed as part of your vision is to engage all students. Not all students will engage with an online learning platform. Some students will need that face-to-face, in person, in order to engage in the curriculum and in order to learn. So I think we do a disservice to a large number of children when we expect them all to learn in the same way. The other thing that you stated in the belief system was that you want educational choices. And so I thank you again for letting the community come and to speak with you. And I think that's what most parents want, is we just want a choice. So I'm happy that you're hearing our voices tonight, and I hope that you'll consider that we already sign waivers when we have our kids play sports, saying we'll take the responsibility. And I think there's a room for that with this. Again, just as other people have said, if there are parents who don't feel comfortable with that, then there are options in this state, fabulous options, that they can actually have that education that they want with the safety that they want. But many of us just want our kids to be mentally, emotionally, as well as educationally safe. And sometimes that's not the safest place at home. The last thing was, in the mission statement, you said that you want all students to succeed. One of my children loved it. He knew exactly what he needed to get done, and he went forward with it and just did it. The other one, not so much. It was a challenge for him because he actually needed that personal contact, showing up to class every single day, having to take account for the work that he was responsible for. So I think it puts a lot of stress on families to try to continue this. As a past educator, doing a week on, week off, if you've ever taught in a classroom and had the 4-day weekend, I'm not sure what a week off is going to do. It's going to take a long time for kids to actually get back into the scheme of things every other week, let alone all the burden that you put on families. So again, I thank you for letting us come and to share our perspective, and I'd ask that you would consider giving us our choice. Thank you.
The school board has recently rescinded.
Sorry.
Dick Clipper. School board has recently rescinded its decision to remove certain books from its curriculum, which begs the question, why would we trust the public school system to teach the topics and themes covered in these books in the first place? Would we voluntarily play the public curriculum to explain the horrors of the Vietnam or any war? Is this board deciding what is right for our children, or making a politically expedient decision based on the media coverage that we've seen on this? Our children, are they only concerned about their re-election? Is that why this decision was made? Well, grades continue to trend downwards, but our taxes don't trend that direction. The tax dollars were not stolen from us to fund your re-election campaign. Or is this all just a distraction from the obvious fact shown from the other testimony from other parents here, that the public school system is an utter failure to do their job amidst this pandemic, and probably everyone's opinion, in my opinion, in the first place. But it's shown everyone here has a different solution and a different idea and something else that they want for their children. But we're all stuck in the system because money is taken from us. If we rent, our landlords charge it because they got to pay you. They have to pay your salaries. So you guys can phone in and just tell our kids to phone in. And if you're doing it right now, you know there's a difference. You know you're not providing the same service. So why charge the same amount for it? That's my question. Where's the discount? These people need to pay for proper care for their children. How are they expected to pay for that when you're already charging them for the same service but not providing it? The only reason they're paying you is because you take their property. You make them homeless if they didn't. And I can't understand why you would send a kid to the school and want to teach them about the horrors of the Vietnam War. That teacher and that board would throw you out of your house if you decided you wanted to pay for your education in some other way. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
My name is Jubilee Underwood, and I feel kind of like an echo of a few of the past parents. I'm here as a very involved sports mom. My son has been playing sports since he was 3 years old, and competitive sports, and this is something that we do literally 5 to 7 days out of the week. But it's for a bigger goal. He wants to play at the collegiate level and go on from there. And so, school-wise, he has worked his tail off to be able to get straight A's, to be able to apply for places like Career Tech, and he'll be going into his freshman year this year, and he got accepted into Career Tech, which gives him the option to play sports at the high school that he would like to play for, which I've heard from the other testimony of the same rumor, whatever you want to say, going around that they might not either have sports or they're going to have the social distance, which you know in sports is not a thing that can actually happen and have the sports play. But this is detrimental for kids that have spent their entire lives feeding into sports. It's not just sports, it's leadership, it's character building, it's all these things that work them into places that will take them further in their jobs and service to community. As we know as adulthood, when I look back in my school experience, I was heavily involved in the sports, and a lot of the stuff that I can take and put into the community that I live in now, I learned through sports and what it taught me. More so as a parent, from a lot of the things that they were saying as well is just wanting to have a choice and wanting to know if this is going to be decisions that are just bitterly made, or do us as parents actually have a voice? Petition? Is there a choice for, like she said, a waiver? That was one of the things I was going to say as well. A waiver saying the school district will not be held responsible if our kids go into school full-time, face-to-face, play sports, and not just play sports in our local district, but be able to play sports in the whole state of Alaska. Because that is what gets kids to the next level that are really trying to do that in all sports. And so, wanting to know about the waiver, if that is an option, and wanting to know if we even have a choice, or who is making the final decision, when that decision is going to be made for how school and sports is going to be handled next year. And will that be on our website? Do we have access to that information? So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
What do I do here? Push this?
Yes, sir.
I'm Madeline Jane Phillips, and I work for First Student. I've been working there for 12 and a half years. I went from regular ed to SPED, and I've seen it all. I don't know how we're going to do it. They took the seats, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bus, and they put the harnesses so that little children have to sit next to each other. You know, they poke their eyes out, they stick their finger up the other kid's nose, they pull their hair. I don't know how we're going to socially distance unless they move all those seats on the bus. I had a little kid, he was a pre-K kid, and he was autistic. And the day after his 3rd birthday, he's still sucking on a bottle. He's in school, and he's coming down the steps, and I have his hands on the rails. So every time we go up and down this bus, those rails must be sanitized because they're digging. I assure you they are. No matter what you tell them, no matter how nice you are, it just doesn't work. Okay, so this kid's on the middle step, and I'm trying to get him to come down, and he's looking all over the place like this. He just coughs and he spits and he sprays all the way down, and I get the shower. Now, I gotta go and handle the rest of those kids. How am I gonna protect those kids if I am contaminated by something? I gotta tell you, I'm rather annoyed that I got laid off on March 6th, and I was supposed to go back to work after spring break. And I've been sitting up there on that mountain, Lazy Mountain, and I've been crying my eyes out nearly every single day because we're hanging in limbo. We don't know what's going to happen. I need to work 2 more years to get to my retirement age of 70. If I'm going to be able to have any kind of life after 52 years of working non-stop. I start at 5:55 in the morning. I get off the bus, we shut it off at 5:35 at night. We give it our all. These people are so golden. You know, the ones that you took half pay from. And it really messed up our unemployment. So I want to know, am I going to be able to wear a full face shield so I don't get sprayed? How am I going to protect myself? How am I going to protect... I was on the Greyhound bus. They have a plexiglass cage around the driver on the Greyhound bus. You open it up, the people come up the steps, they close the door, the driver is in a cubicle all by themselves. 4 seconds. How are we going to protect ourselves? I came back with a COVID from the Greyhound bus. I was so sick I couldn't walk.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hello, so I'm a little bit nervous because I don't like public speaking. I would like to come, my name is Kirsten Hills.
Please state your name.
Kirsten Hills, and I'm a school teacher in the district. And I just wanted to come before you to teach elementary school. One of the things that I'm really worried about this last quarter as a teacher is I know of several kids, and not only in my school, but lots of kids around the district who just kind of disappeared off the radar. I really appreciated the person who spoke earlier who said that home is not a safe place for everyone. As somebody who has worked social services with supervised visitation as well as domestic violence, I would like to encourage you to look at the statistics and the amount of kids that are in foster care in the state of Alaska. More kids will enter foster care this year, and several families will fly under the radar. My concern is that those kids that disappeared off the radar received no education. I can't necessarily prove that. It's possible that parents did work with them, but there's no evidence to say that they received any type of education. Also, as a teacher, I had a lot of parents who would complain who were still working. It was hard for them to be able to sit down with their kids. There were times I would try to get on with them with Zoom, and it seemed like I had the same 5 kids every single day that would log into Zoom. And then the last one is just with social distancing. People get energy from one another. That's why at the end of the year, teachers will sit down and we make lists, and we see which kids shouldn't be together because they feed off of each other. Okay, so sometimes you can get negative energy from people, or you get with people when you're not around, but you can also get positive energy from people that you don't get from behind a screen. One of the things that I heard from my teacher friends around the nation is when they would finish with Zoom, they would feel sad. Of course they do. When you feel that way, it's your brain telling you that it didn't get the emotional support that it needs, And not only that, as a teacher, I was homeschooled, but as a teacher, I've heard lots of other teachers who would criticize homeschooling because it doesn't give kids the opportunity to learn social skills. So remote learning isn't really going to give kids those opportunities either. You know, we need to be able to gather together. We need to be able to laugh together. Our kids need to be able to celebrate each other's successes together. And I just have concerns that if we continue with the remote learning, even if it's 1 week on, especially kids from unstable homes that aren't used to having a lot of structure, they don't have that consistent structure. And if home isn't a safe place to go to be at, every other week, those kids are going to be in a situation that we don't always necessarily know what's going on, and we don't have that time to really connect and to build relationships with those students so that they know that they can trust us if they have anything that they need to disclose for us for OCS. So thank you for your time, and I apologize for being so nervous.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Bert Upton. I have a child out here in the Matsu School District. She's one of the few that, how you say, is very fortunate that she was already using the Google Classrooms, the Zoom, prior to this, not to interact with teachers, but with other people. Their school is 100% done on Chromebooks. When this virus hit, the only complaint that I received from most of the students that went to this school was that they no longer had their social interaction time with other students and they couldn't go to art class. Biggest disappointment. My child has friends that go to the Anchorage School District. When they launched this virtual online school, they were struggling. They were already students that were not what you would classify as an A student. They barely squeaked by, D's and F's sometimes, but that was the majority of what their grades were year in, year out. My child, the first week that they had their school, she went to their house. They stayed with them. They had 5 different students all work together. She helped them learn the platform, something that nobody else in this state of Alaska was allowed to do. They went home from spring break and immediately found out you're now going to learn everything virtually with zero training. This included the teachers down to the students. Who's to say that this system isn't going to work to go to virtual classrooms? There's many different cases out there that show that virtual classrooms do work if applied correctly, if given the training. If students have the opportunity to learn how to use the system and not just be expected to try to figure it out on their own at home with zero support. I hear the biggest complaint is we don't have enough internet connections. We don't have the ability to get students to interact with the system. Who's to say if we close down 80% of our brick and mortar schools, why can't we take that money in savings and put it in towards putting internet into every student's home during the school year? You have one household that has 5 kids. That's one internet connection. That's $100 a month, $900 a year to be able to put them in the high-speed internet connection to their home versus a brick and mortar school. You have one teacher can now teach 600 students from a virtual classroom. If these students need extra help, that's what the other 20% of the virtual brick and mortar schools that are not closed down can be used for. They can be able to help the people that need the extra education, that have the special needs, that need to be able to be in a more of a classroom environment. Students that are no longer not able to get the training that they need to, the virtual classroom, it just doesn't fit their mold. It gives the parents a place for them to be able to send their children to get that extra help. Hopefully bring them up to speed where virtual classrooms would be usable. I've crunched the numbers. You save $700 million a year from our school system's budget just by doing this. Take some of that savings, take $100 million of that, put it into the internet so that everybody out there has the ability. And I'm talking statewide, not just in the Matsu Valley. Take another $100 million of that, and you could be able to have daycare for
your time's
students
up.
that
Could you
need it.
please go to your comment?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Is there anybody else?
Hello, my name is Erin Lindola. I'm a Matsu career tech and will be a senior this year. This year you've decided that half of the student body will spend a week in school while the other half will be at home doing remote learning. But parents can't always stay at home. People need to work, and only working alternate weeks is not enough for some families. Some single parents can't afford to do this. They can't stay at home during the day and take care of their children's schooling. But what about children in abusive situations, where their only escape is school? How can you be so confident that a parent will care enough to ensure that their child is doing their schoolwork? These are not the only things you have to consider with this plan. Some children have IEPs that require them to be at school, with specialists getting the help they need. My parents aren't psychologists, and my brother has an IEP. Are you saying that he's only worth helping half of the year? Socialization is another factor you haven't considered with this plan. School-age children need to be around others their age to develop proper social skills. School isn't just about learning facts, or math, or how to read. It also teaches us teamwork, problem solving, and how to get along with others. Cutting our time with our friends and colleagues will be detrimental to some students. Remote learning is not easy. This is something that I learned as I struggled through my final quarter of my junior year. I missed out on so much: labs in chemistry and physics, an entire chapter in my algebra class, and an entire unit in my English. It's not easy when you don't have a teacher in front of you explaining a topic, answering questions immediately, or having students next to you who are willing to help. I severely struggled with my classes during this time, and I know I will not be able to keep my AP average for the plan if this is the plan next year. There are many things you can do in person that you just can't do on the computer, like mix chemicals in my chemistry class, or fire the pressure cannon for a demonstration in physics. Lots of classes require being in a classroom, and without the work environment, many students will be distracted, like I was. Why do work when there are video games, books, TV, all of these distractions right at your fingertips? I get distracted very easily, which is really hard to do when you're in a school environment, but very easy to do at home on my desk in my bedroom. I ended up spending longer than a usual school day getting work done that should have taken no more than a few hours. Another problem is that parents aren't teachers. They don't know how to, a lot of parents don't know how to work the system, and they don't know how to teach the subjects. My grades actually dropped during remote learning because I had no help. It takes a long time for a Zoom meeting to come around, or a teacher to answer an email when they have 6 to 7 classes to take care of. And according to your online survey, parents and students actually want full-time learning. Not all parents have the option to homeschool their kid. Alaska is open, why aren't the schools? Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more for this session. We have another block for testimony at the top of the agenda items if you need to, but do we have anybody else who wants to speak? Okay, see none. Next item is Borough and City reports. Do we have anybody from Borough or City? Okay. Administrative reports?
Yes, thank you, Vice President Hart. My name is Luke Volp, Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations, and this evening we wanted an opportunity to present our review our reopening plan and planning efforts around the school year's restart. So this is our last board meeting of the school year. We have a break in July from school board meetings, and we are going to use this as an opportunity to brief the board on some of the planning efforts that are happening here at district office and within our community and our schools. So just briefly want to mention that we are in that period of transition between superintendents. Dr. Goyette, her final day with us was Friday, June 12th. Dr. Trainee is working with us and is engaged with us daily. He actually was here for Monday and Tuesday of this week. So Dr. Goyette's final day was Friday. Dr. Trainee was here Monday, and the two of them have worked very well together to make sure that we've had a smooth transition and we're not missing a beat. So I appreciate that effort from both of them. In terms of this PowerPoint presentation, The overview of what we're going to cover tonight is just the timeline to review key dates and summer schedules for our reopening, and specifically talk about some of those in-person services. So that will be something that we're actively preparing for and will be coming online June 29th for extended school year and credit recovery programs. We're going to briefly review our planning efforts. That includes our working group and school-based mitigation plans, which are currently under development based on framework that we're receiving from both the state of Alaska and the CDC. We're going to review some of the learning models, some that have circulated as of late, but really ultimately letting parents know that they are going to be the ones to ultimately decide where their child goes next year and if their child attends school. So there's an opt-in during the registration process for an at-home learning model for parents who want to select that. Otherwise, we will have, and that ability will be made available at all of our brick and mortar schools, as well as the schools of choice, boundary schools as well as the schools of choice. Moving on, we'll also talk about how we're going to be assessing the risk, who we'll be partnering with to make some of those determinations at the state level and then also here locally. And then briefly cover the Alaska Smart Start guidance, which is just came out earlier this month, and it's from the State of Alaska Department of Education, speaks to the levels of risk that we'll need to be prepared for moving into the fall. And then finally, we'll do a brief overview of next steps and what we intend to communicate with the public and reopening schools safely. And so that's going to be an effort that's ongoing. Obviously, the board's heard some concerns from the community tonight, and many of those questions and concerns we're preparing for and we will be addressing in the weeks to come. So briefly, just to highlight, on a high level, we have 3 recovery phases for COVID-19. The first phase that we're currently in is a gradual reopening and preparation for in-person services following the school closure that was mandated by the state of Alaska. And that involves the COVID-19 working group, which we'll explain in a little greater detail in the slides to come. We're preparing for June 29th, and the reason why that is the beginning of phase 2 is because that's our restart and reentry framework is going to be in place. Our school mitigation plans are going to be in place for in-person services. School's not going to reopen for the entire district until August, but here in the Matsu School District, we have extended school year, we have credit recovery, summer school options that happen over the summer months, and we have in-person services that we have to prepare for. Our goal is to make sure we have a mitigation plan in place and all the planning and preparation that needs to go into reopening schools safely is done before we enter into phase 2 on Monday, June 29th. And then phase 3 is when COVID-19 is no longer a public health risk. This is what we're all definitely waiting for and hoping for when we can truly return to normal, and the date on that is obviously to be determined. So briefly, when we look at phase 2 and go get more specific with these timelines as to what we're preparing over the next few weeks and months, you can see that tonight is our opportunity to brief the board on our reopening plans. That was something that we set out to do several weeks ago, and so tonight is an opportunity for the board to ask questions about our planning and our efforts thus far. June 29th, registration opens, so that's online registration. And then we also have indoor activities resume. So any extracurricular activities that take place indoor, those will be happening on June 29th. Monday, June 29th is also the beginning of summer school. So you'll see below the chart, there's a line, the blue signifies that we'll have in-person services for some major programs. So as previously mentioned, special education extended school year, credit recovery, and CTE intensives. With those programs at various schools throughout the district, we're anticipating serving over 500 students through in-person services from June 29th through July 24th. So that's why we had to get ahead of the ball in terms of planning. On July 1st, we anticipate a decision and an update from the Alaska School Activities Association around fall activities. So they are very much responsible and have oversight for all of the sports and activities that occur in our high schools, ASA sanctioned sports. and the schedules for those sports, and also oversee the competition of those sports. We anticipate some update from them on July 1st, which will inform our fall activities, and we will be making decisions around the update that we received from ASA. Similarly, we are delaying a decision on interstate travel until July 15th, until we know more about the spread of the coronavirus and can make a more informed decision. On July 24th, that's the final day of the summer school program, so that's why that's listed there. And then the next few are pending board approval. So on August 12th, it's an action item that's on the agenda tonight. It's teachers would return on August 12th. Currently, our current calendar that's been approved by the board calls for a teacher's return on Monday, August 10th, with 1 work day and 2 professional development days before the current start of the school year, which would be August 13th. The board proposed calendar changes that for teachers to return on August 12th with 5 workday and PD days between that day and the official start of the school year on August 19th. This is something that many districts around the state are trying to do, is to try to build in more planning time on the front end of the semester. It's something that Commissioner Johnson has encouraged all 53 school districts to look at in an attempt to limit disruption throughout the semester and do the planning on the front end. So that is something that is asterisk because it's not a given. Those dates would, if not approved by the board, they would revert back to the August 10th and August 13th dates. Additionally, on August 17th, we plan to make a decision around international travel for all spring 2021 travel. International travel for fall 2020 has been canceled, so that would be school-sponsored activities. So moving on into the planning, we have some major components of our planning efforts thus far. We mentioned the working groups previously. This is a collaborative group comprised of district leaders from all different functional areas coming together every Tuesday. So it's a weekly meeting where we report on development of the mitigation plans, different ordering that we have to do over the summer months, and preparation that we're making in advance of school reopening and in-person services. So we're really discussing all the intricacies of our work, planning around 3 different models of delivering instruction and those support services that go along with the instructional services that we provide. Our mitigation plans are going to be school-based plans designed to support learning at all levels of risk, and I'll talk about the levels of risk a little later into the presentation, but that's the framework that the state of Alaska has provided us. These mitigation plans will have components that require consistency across the district for all of our schools. However, there'll also be a component of these mitigation plans that are unique to schools, that the school principals and their staff can inform how they're going to do different things throughout the day, like class, when periods, the change of period and bell times, and hallway circulation, and what happens during the lunch break based on that footprint of that school and the grade level served. So there's a need for it to be customized, but there will also be major components that are consistent and required district-wide. So a couple of the things that would be within the base plan are common area modifications, attendance monitoring, social emotional needs, school schedules, curriculum, delivery methods, and then each plan will have an appendice for some of those district-wide supports that are such as student activities and travel, transportation, food service, community services, and facility use, to name a few. Once we have those mitigations plans fully vetted and we have input from the community and all stakeholders and staff, we'll begin the process of communicating the plan for engaging the public, and then also sharing levels of community spread and how we're defining those levels of community spread. So this will be an ongoing effort to communicate with many different audiences about our plans to restart. We'll have FAQs, we'll have town hall aspects of it as well. All of those things are in the works, and that is in the weeks to come, primarily in July and early August. And then we are planning for a dynamic situation at each one of our schools in which we'll be monitoring the spread of the coronavirus and then implementing different learning models when school reopens, and preparing for us the ability to respond quickly, be agile, and be responsive to the needs of the community for the safety and well-being of our students and staff. So moving on to just a a brief definition and overview of what those learning models are. We have at-school learning, which will be the traditional in-school learning with social distancing, personal protective measures, hand hygiene, and enhanced cleaning and disinfecting of high-touch surfaces. So it will look very much like the regular school day. However, we will have practices in place to make sure that our students and staff are being safe at all times and practicing some of these good preventive measures as it relates to COVID-19. We will also have a blended model for when it's required of community spread. And this blended model is going to be dynamic as well. We're trying to maintain as much flexibility with what it might look like and how we might respond to a school closure. So there's a couple different ideas around this that are being discussed and worked through and ironed out. But primarily it's a rotating schedule where students participate in both learning models every other week. So they'd be participating at school and at home. This may also include a short-term building closure for cleaning and contact tracing. So there's a number of different things that go into what the blended component could look like. What we do know in terms of the CDC and the state of Alaska is that we have a confirmed case of COVID in a school. Then we're looking at a short-term school closure, building closure for cleaning, contact tracing, and to determine whether or not that the virus is spread to other students and staff members. And then finally, we have at-home learning. This is an option that parents can elect. It's an opt-in option for at-home learning during the online registration process that opens on June 29th. This model will also be used for extended building closure. So if the state mandates an extended closure like they did this past spring, we will be at this at-home learning model, the remote learning that we all saw, and appreciated all the work that the teachers put into that to make it a meaningful period of time for students across the district. So in terms of assessing risk, this is where new information is coming out daily, where we're learning more and more about how our public health officials are going to be tracking and assessing risk within our communities. So who we will be relying on specifically, and this is at the direction of the Department of Education, that schools, that we will rely on public health authorities. So for us, Matsu Public Health, but then also the Department of Health and Social Services Epidemiology Department is there to assist us on determining the level of spread within a community. They're responsible for contact tracing, for knowing what's happening with specific index cases. They also define who's within close contact of a confirmed case. All of that information will be shared with the district. We'll be partnering with them regularly to determine what is the risk to our different school communities. We're also following the Alaska Smart Start and CDC interim guidance. The Alaska Smart Start uses the CDC interim guidance to inform its framework. We're following that guidance from the state of Alaska, and we're making sure that their levels of risk are the same levels of risk that we're using their definitions. I have a slide on that in just a bit. And then they also have ways for us to plan around school startup, trying to limit disruption to learning, and really account for continuity of learning, conditions for learning, and capacities for learning, in which they all define within that framework. Also, we will be adhering to all health mandates. So if there's, again, a state mandate to close schools, we'll be adhering to that, and we'll have a plan in place for responding to, again, not disrupt learning. So the objective is to establish and maintain communication with our public health authorities to determine current mitigation levels in each community. And one of the big developments that happened last week, as we were looking at this framework and trying to identify how we would respond to community spread, is we needed a definition for community, and it wasn't clear within the initial framework that was provided by the Department of Education. Since that time, the Commissioner Johnson, has clarified with some of the larger districts that were concerned about the definition of community being too restrictive to a large district with such a large population, that based on the level of community spread, we did not think that we could ever obtain green status or low status, because we would always have a case, an ongoing case. Well, the State of Alaska Department of Education Early Development is considering each school to be its own community for the purposes of determining levels of risk. So it's very flexible. It allows us to look at a school community in and of itself. We may have to expand that definition at times based on an outbreak that might happen in a specific area of our borough. But that will be informed by the public health officials, this Department of Health and Social Services. For the most part, we are utilizing the definition that is most flexible, least restrictive, and allows us to define each community as a single school community. So regarding the Alaska Smart Start guidance, just put it up there because I think it's an excellent quotation for the period of time we're in. An excellent education for every student every day. That's the mission statement for the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development. That's within the framework that they issued. And as mentioned previously, the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development partnered with the Department of Health and Social Services to develop the framework for Alaska's K-12 schools. Using this framework, the Department of Health and Social Services established health parameters for how schools can safely operate in low, medium, and high-risk environments. And so this is how, within the framework, this is how these environments are defined. High risk is widespread community transmission. When you look at this definition, this is taken verbatim from the document. High level of community transmission means outbreaks or increases in cases and recent laboratory confirmed cases of COVID-19. You move down through the continuum. Medium risk is some community transmission, low to moderate level of community transmission, minimal amount of laboratory confirmed cases of COVID-19 as determined by the community. And then finally, the low risk category is no community transmission. And this is where our concern was with the definition of community and how it would be applied to our borough being as large as it is. No laboratory confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the last 14 days and no reported increase in the number of cases in the last 14 days. So using that definition, if we looked at the entire borough with over 22 active cases, it would be very difficult for us to open schools in a low-risk green category. So the guidance that we received from both the commissioner and the chief medical officer earlier this week, they both aligned in their interpretation of this and the definition of community. It is based on single schools. So it is likely that we can open school in green status for all 47 schools come August. So that's something that we'll be tracking and monitoring, of course, based on case counts, but that is something that we're looking at in terms of where do we begin. We won't have confirmed cases in our schools. We will obviously adhere to all of the social distancing and mitigation practices to minimize the risk, but we'll have the ability to open in low risk if nothing changes with the total number of cases and outbreaks in the Matsu borough. So moving on to next steps, this is just again, high-level overview of the work that will be done all summer long. We are actively engaged daily and weekly with that working group, and we look at bringing in all sorts of stakeholders in terms of staff and community members to help inform that planning. So on June 29th, summer school starts and online registration opens with the option for at-home learning at Boundary School or School of Choice for all parents across the district. We will be developing a plan to engage parents and members of the community prior to the start of the school year. This will include virtual town halls. Our website has a landing page for COVID-19. We'll have Facebook updates, and then paid media. This is our start of the school year back to school brochure. That's paid advertisements within the Frontiersman and ADN. And then we will also be finalizing and implementing our school-based mitigation plans. And that will also be available to the public so that they can look through those documents as we approach the beginning of the school year and engage with their school principal and staff around different mitigation strategies that are being used at that particular school to help ensure the safety of each child. With those mitigation plans, we will also have a district mitigation plan that we will then submit to the Department of Education and Early Development to explain what it is that we're doing district-wide to help support learning on an ongoing basis, and that is a requirement of all 53 districts heading into the fall. So that is the requirement of Alaska Smart Start program. If there's any questions, I myself or Assistant Superintendent Amy Spargo are happy to answer those questions and engage the board at this time.
Just have a few questions. With the Alaska Smart Start 2020, when does that kick off or take place? And where I'm going with that question is, right now, can this smart sheet be used for sports? Green, yellow, red? I mean, is that, at what point does this get triggered?
It's implemented, and we are, there's not a due date on when the mitigation plan is due to the state of Alaska other than before the first day of school. So it was released this month, and the state is allowing us time to work out the details of our planning and submit it to them. Right now, for the purposes of outdoor activities, and again, the determination was made before we knew exactly what community spread was and what the definition of community is. But we're taking the approach that right now we're in minimal to moderate, and so that is informing how we are going about outdoor activities. On June 29th, indoor activities begin, and we will be taking a similar approach. The other thing that does inform activities that makes it a little unique is that ASA also will have planning, and they will be, they're responsible for maintaining oversight for all statewide sanctioned sports. So in terms of competitive sports schedules and whatnot, that will be informed by ASA as well.
In the definition of community, you had indicated that we received that here within the school district, but is that statewide? Are they applying that definition statewide?
Through the chair, yes, that's my understanding. They alluded to the fact that Anchorage had a similar question and that they had the same response for them in terms of the flexibility. However, I don't believe that too many other districts have requested. It is unique to the larger Big Five districts where our communities are so large that we needed to know how specific we could get with that definition. But there's 53 school districts in the state of Alaska. Many of them, this is a non-issue.
And this is just for the kids that are in the school, or is it the family within the school? And then how does the school district obtain the medical records of those individuals and which schools they go to?
Yes, through the chair, those are great questions. Right now, the way that this is being interpreted is it's staff and students. So confirmed cases of staff or students within that school community. The way that we would obtain that information is we need participation from our staff and students to self-report any positive testing that occurs. We need them to monitor their health conditions and share that information with our school nurse to the extent that they can, and we will provide them all the information on the privacy of their data and whatnot. But then in addition to that, if that is not reported to us, then we work with the state on the confirmed cases that they have access to through physicians and the reporting that occurs through that level. So the state of Alaska, because it becomes a public health risk, they will share certain information with us to let us know whether or not we have an outbreak if it's not self-reported. The benefit of self-reporting is that if we have full participation from our families and staff, is of course that we get ahead of it and we know about it earlier. It does take a day to 2 to 3 days even is what the state said for some of the positive cases to work their way to the state level from the doctors and clinics around the state of Alaska.
I believe that you've answered my questions. Just for the public, what is ASA? Just so they understand that it's just not a term we throw out there.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Welton. It's the Alaska School Activities Association.
Okay, and they are the ones who are basically in charge of the activities that we have in our schools that are the sanctioned ones.
That's correct, and so they would, any intra-state competition, so within different districts within the state, they would have oversight for that, and they have jurisdiction for those sporting activities. However, if a sport or activity is disallowed by ASA, we still have the ability within our district to allow our teams to compete against one another if it is safe to do so and the level of transmission allows us to do that.
I hope that helps the public understand that we're not the only ones to say don't do this or do that, that we have to go by those guidelines. Thank you.
President Berkey, do you have anything?
I have no questions at this time, thank you.
Member Trimmer?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Bonner.
Just to follow up on the planning phase process, there was both a mitigation plan, which you had indicated that parents would be contributing and communicated with, and that's prior to the communication phase. How are those parents going? Here we've got virtual town halls, websites, Facebook, and paid media, but how will you be getting more of the parental or guardians' input prior to communication for that mitigation plan?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you for that question, Member Ponder. The chart that showed the working group mitigation plans, communication, and learning models was not necessarily in an order of succession. So it was just all the different efforts that we're making. We will be developing these mitigation plans all summer so that they're in place for the start of the school year. We do need the mitigation plan for the extended school year to be in place for June 29th. So that's our focus, is to get the summer school one done now so that it can be in place. But for the rest of the school year, we will be working on those and finalizing them throughout the month of July. And so through different efforts and venues, virtual town halls, online surveys, we look to solicit input and information from families about what their desires are around what school can look like and what their comfort level is with some of this stuff. So we need buy-in from the entire community. We understand that, and our planning efforts will allow for that.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda, which consists of item A, the minutes of May 27, 2020, and minutes of June 3rd, 2020.
Second.
Is there any objection?
I second.
Thank you. Hearing no objections, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to item 7, action items. Can I get a motion and a second to bring forward the request for contract approval, B2016, Ficklen Construction?
I move item A, request for contract approval, B20-16, Midland Construction.
Second.
All right, is there an admin report?
An admin report was presented on June 3rd as a non-action item. This contract exceeds $200,000, so it's being brought before the board. If there's any questions, we can answer them.
Okay. Is there a public comment? Mr. Haber?
My name is Eugene Colliman, as a Matsu Valley, follow the public process, and the public process on purpose, decision made by the governing body while I public interest. I'll be very brief on this due to its concern. Number one, awarding this contract, who are the other parties that bid on this? There's no document to show that at all. It would be nice to see those other bids. The names of the other parties, but that's not shown here. The agreement is here. For public decision and yourself to approve. And then another footnote to this thing is I see the line. Normally I don't talk about these issues, okay, but I thought I'd take a moment now to talk about it. The 10% contingency, it's just like open door that is something you would expect happen. You would expect happen, then you go right away and spend the money. I would think that more. It would be more responsible to identify those issues before you, in this document here, what they could be, instead of just giving them a blank check of 10% in that scenario. And that's all I have to say. The rest of it will be very brief with respect to me. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay, see none. Do we have a board discussion?
Isn't it, I'd like to know the standard practice for contingency.
For some of these projects, through the chair, for some of these projects, we don't, some of the cost, some of the amounts here are estimates because the project can have overruns based on the complexity of it. And so to avoid a second approval, that we would have to come back before the board and ask, make the request again in the future. We're trying to give ourselves a little bit of a buffer because it's not a hard and fast number. It is a project that involves time and effort and can have project overruns.
Thank you.
As far as the posting of other competitors, is there a legal reason that we don't post the other competitors for the contract?
We just have not received a request to in the past. We can certainly do that if that's the will of the board.
Yeah, if there's no reason not to, let's go ahead and do that. All right, any other discussion? Anyone on the phone?
Just Mr. Bergen, no.
Mr. Trevor?
No.
Okay. Now we bring it to a vote. This will be a voice vote. Mr. Bonder?
Yes.
Mr. Trevor?
Yes.
Mr. Berge?
Yes.
Dr. Weldon?
Yes.
And I myself vote yes. The measure passes. Can I get a motion and a second for the Houston School refit 95% design approval? Bring it forward.
I move the Houston School retrofit 95% design approval.
Second.
Is there an admin report?
The admin report was presented on June 3rd as a non-action item by Executive Director Mike Brown and the design team.
Okay, is there any public comment? Mr. Haber?
Haberman.
Yes, Mr. Haber?
Haberman. BTR.
Yes, sir.
My name is Eugene Haberman. I represent myself. I follow the public process, and the public process done appropriately. Decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. I've discussed these concerns before, and I don't feel that they have been appropriately addressed publicly. Those concerns are like business as usual. Those concerns are dealing with the earthquake and the feasibility of building and locations that, to me, have not been really documented as the unknown risk. Now, sidebar conversation, that's the last time I addressed this, after the meeting by one school board member says it has been done. But the documents are not there. The documents are not there. You're approving the next step. Say you had 35%, and now we're dealing with, I believe it's 95%. I'm correct in reading this thing, and alter the missing information. And we should be concerned, it's not just the school on the issue that addressing geotech issues. It's all the schools. All schools should have had a evaluation of the feasibility of building it. And I don't see any report in all this time that addressed this same concerns in Anchorage as well as here. And address concerns also back over 40 years. A resident in Alaska on the issues of liability, failure to build in high-risk areas. Are these in high-risk areas? You don't create a situation in closing of, okay, they're proposing a cost and this is to do the retrofit. That's what they're talking about, retrofit. And the thing is to that building being retrofit, is that in a high-risk area? And what feasibility studies haven't done? They have not, there's no documents here. If there was a real effort to bring it out, to be part of this package, the public can examine that information. The so-called expert to have this part of this thing. It doesn't exist, or maybe it exists, but it's not part of the presentation. And that, in closing, respectively, how can you go forward with that very important point of information? Because we're dealing with the safety of those who are in that building. That includes students, administration staff, and the public that goes through it. Thank you very much. With 40 seconds to spare. Yeah. Should have both sides there. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there board discussion? Anybody on the phone?
No. No questions at this time.
Okay. Then it's time for us to bring it to a vote. We'll do it by voice. Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Berge?
Yes.
Dr. Welton?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mr. Ponder?
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Moving on to item C, fiscal 21 revised school year calendars. Can I get a motion and a second?
I move item C, FY21 revised school year calendars.
Second.
Is there an admin report?
The admin report was presented on June 3rd. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Mr. Hayward?
My name is Eugene Haberman. I represent myself. I live in Matsu Valley. Follow public process. Public process on appropriate decision made by the governing body or like the public interest. I do appreciate the fact that when we do these things, you have non-action, one meeting, and you have action. So I appreciate that. So there's reflection for the public to be able to hear the administration's proposal. Also, there's a change since then, and the public to be able to vote on it. Thank you for that. Respectfully. If I recall, this issue I addressed, there was a point in the document that I read last year in the last meeting, was the issue that certain days the schools would be closed during the election. And normally the schools would be open. But we are in different times now. And the decision is to, instead of having schools open and elections to run the school at the same time, to remember those days. As a resident of the Valley for a few years, when schools were open and elections were run, and you heard the noise of basketball courts in the background right next to it. So it's been a challenge there. But there's no clear identification in this document. What schools are we talking about that are going to be part of the election process to have elections in those schools? There's no identity to those. And I would think that there should have been an attachment to bring out that information, particularly at this time when the remarks, most of it was in this one, that, and I'm hearing other places, is that there's a question of who's going to be involved in the election, how much support staff is going to be able to be willing to be involved in elections that come in this fall. So I think that should have been brought out. And remind the public here that we're not just talking about schools that are where you go to vote in the Valley. And if there's a mail-in, it's a different story. Here, thankfully, we have more of an involvement where you go to a register and prove your identification and sign in. And that, to me, is the best way. But the fact is that the identities of those other locations included non-schools too. So we need to get a closer look at, and this document here should have had a closer document identification of the schools involved with the election, participating. Thank you for 29 seconds of spirit, and I'll remember to turn this on.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there any board discussion? Anybody on the phone?
No. I have no comment.
Okay, then we'll go to a vote. Oh, sorry. Ms. Potter.
Just to ask, there's nothing, there's no issues under what the current operational contract with the teachers are by pushing it out a few days, is there?
No, there's not.
On the back end, I see there's only 1 day difference in May that it goes from when the last day of school is, from the 20th of May to the 21st.
The other changes to the calendar were around the cancellation of the state fair. And so we used to have a vacation day on the Friday before Memorial Day or Labor Day, and that was removed. And so then there's less change to the springtime.
I'm just putting it out there that for clarity that we're not starting 5 days later and then going 5 days longer at the end of the year. Just the way it works out is just a one-day difference. So.
Okay, is there any further board discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. This will be a voice vote. Mr. Birdie?
Yes.
Dr. Welton?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Ponder?
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer?
Yes.
Okay, it passes. Moving on to item D, contract award, bid number 20-08, Talkeetna Elementary School roof repairs. Can I get a motion in a second?
I move the contract award bid number B20-08, Talkeetna Elementary School roof repairs.
Second.
Is there an admin report?
Yes, through the chair. This is the first reading of this item. We are requesting it as an action item because it is time sensitive. We need this roof repaired before the fall approaches and winter sets in. This is an item that the board has already taken action on, however, to authorize the CIP amount. It was originally discussed during the winter budget revision. It was delayed because of some concerns about funding at the borough level. The board came back and provided the authorization on February 19th, 2020. So this is an item that the board's familiar with. I'm just sharing that it is an action item today because of the time-sensitive nature of it.
All right, and do we have any public discussion? Public comment? Mr. Haber?
My name is Eugene Haberman. I represent myself. I filed the public process. When the public process got an appropriate decision made by the governing body, more likely than the public interest. I'll be very on topic on this one. I'm glad the administration made that point, that this was an action item without having the opportunity of being a non-action item. For those in the public who are not aware what that means is that first it becomes a non-action item. Administration gives an opportunity to explain that item, any questions, and it allows the public also to speak at the time after that explanation. And then there's a lot of opportunity for what we call digest that information, not leave the staying night and becoming an action item that never became a non-action item. That is what the administration is doing tonight. They're doing it, skipping that process. And note the words in the state law, provide a reasonable option for public be heard. But how can the public be heard and hear what the administration is going to say on this issue? Is there reporting tonight? And then the fact is, questions and so forth. How can the public be engaged? So they're saying that an excuse on that item, but for the record, this is not the only item that they're doing this tonight. The other item is a topic of interpretive services that I don't see on the agenda. So we've got a problem. You have to make a decision. Do you want to do a rush judgment on it without a fair chance for the public to be heard? Or do you want to do it fairly and go with state law as a reasonable option for the public to be heard? What is the delay? And there's also catch-22, if I remember the words I was defensively to the administration's report. This is the last meeting, and then you're not going to have a meeting scheduled out for, there's a break. And that may be the catch-22, and they're pushing these items right here. Instead of, couldn't they have done better planning? And should the public be having a situation to have that lack of planning and this resulting lack of opportunity for the public to speak with 58 seconds spare? Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Is there any board discussion? Anybody on the phone?
Nothing to add.
Okay, just really quick, Mr. Polk, I remember this coming up as a non-action item. If we discussed it several times. This has not been the first time this has shown up on the agenda.
This is correct. It's not only been a non-action item, but it's also been an action item. That was for the authorization of funds. This is simply for the contract approval because it exceeds $200,000. So
yeah, this has been batted around.
It has
several times.
This is not new.
Okay, thank you. All right, now is there any other discussion? All right, we'll go to a vote. It'll be a voice vote. Dr. Wilton.
Yes.
Member Bonner.
Yes.
Member Trimmer.
Yes.
President Bernie.
Yes.
I too vote yes. Measure passes. And it's a really good time for us to take a quick break before we move on. Let's go ahead and break for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 7:42.
Okay, 10-minute break. I'm going to go ahead and let this continue to keep running. I may not, or I should be able to come back and continue this. I'm going to go out and enjoy the break for just a moment. Hang out, set your phone down, come back in 10 minutes. Good enough time to go do whatever you need to do. Don't forget, Senator Mike Shower went live at 7 p.m. breaking down the corruption in Juneau, the binding caucus. Don't forget to watch his live stream. It should still be going on right now. I will be sharing it after this is over with and doing a watch party with it. So stay tuned for that afterwards.
Are you excited about that? What an artist. He's like, what were you talking
The same goes every university can ever say, trying to recruit kids, but they're going to have to go off of old stats.
I wanted to Google you when I wanted to find out about you, you
So I know some schools to go for.
Oh, yeah. It's all. That's the central, it's the old
So these parents can come in and not just talk to the board where it's one way, but read this.
Oh,
glad you're having fun at your last meeting.
Where are you going to
Oh my gosh, don't worry about it. I thought you just didn't want to. And I was like, well, leave it. It's in their email inbox. You can draw their attention to it.
I do it because they might not
Okay, I'll be ready for it. I needed someone else to say that because I don't want your chicken It went out to all the staff, parents. Don't be sorry. You got your, no, I get it. It's so much to remember that you told me. Yeah, just start Just make a note. And that's not actually what's supposed to happen.
He was often in bodily fluids.
It's a good night.
Oh, it's easy enough.
Good.
I'm totally with you on that. We have gone. But I'm really fascinated in some of these reports now people who have taken on the cause, doing the front to their rights, dignity, etc. I will not go against, even though it's like,
And Michael's like, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's going to work. So I'd like it to sound like a super official thing, but it was really, he's like, I'm never going to know what So we got there. So every time we got to like this, and I was like, I think this is a really good idea.
No, I figured. It made sense.
This doesn't have we just came up with a really good idea.
Okay, just about ready to get started back up again. As you can see, they've got the social distancing rules here in place here. Chairs are over 6 feet apart. Tables, split seating, 6 feet apart. School board members virtually participating over the telephone. And somehow, some way, we're supposed to continue this in August for school.
Member Trimmer, I'm here. Member Berkey, I'm here.
All right, next item. Item E, request for contract approval, bid number B20-18, interpreter services. Can I get a motion and a second?
I move item E, request for contract approval, bid B20-18, interpreter services.
Second.
Okay, is there an admin report?
Yes, thank you. This is a contract to provide sign language interpreting services to students, staff, and parents for FY21. We have bid these services, and React Consulting is the apparent successful proposer. They've received the notice of intent to award, and pending board approval tonight, they will be awarded the contract. One of the reasons why we are bringing this before the board as a single action for an action item, not 2 hearings, is with the schedule of no July board meetings. We want to give that commitment on pricing that React has agreed to, and make sure that our vendor understands that they have these services in place and can plan around that with the pricing that they've guaranteed us. Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Mr. Haber.
My name is Eugene Carl Heyman. I represent myself, follow the public process, and the public process by appropriate decision made by the building body or like the public interest. Same issues I addressed before. No non-action opportunity earlier to do a vote law step in the same meeting. And during break, I asked this question to the administration staff, when's the next school board meeting, and the understands August 5th. So this is what happened. You're not going to have a long break, and I'm not questioning the need of a break with all due respect. And a lot of things that you've been dealing with over the course of this year and mental of it. But the fact is, we need to respect the public and have that conversation, respect it with them instead of rushing it. Also, the problem exists for the other bidders. I'll be true, some of you see no other bidders in this thing. And you need those documents, you need the names of those bidders. If we've got comparison chart. And the reason why one is selected over another. You know, we the public can act as you have to earn the public trust in what you do. But you also, they, in this business, got to earn your trust in what they're doing. And by walking blindly in this path, how can you have trust in what's before you with so little information, blindly information, in what needs to be seen by you and the public before you make a decision? And that closes my comment with 1 minute, 33 seconds. Fair. Thank you very much.
Do you have a public comment? Seeing none, is there any board discussion? Mr. Bacher.
See that it states here that the district had been contracting with a number of independent interpreters to provide sign language interpreting services to students, staff, and parents. The last 2 years, what's been that line item expenditure?
Through the chair, I do not have that information tonight. We do not have that information tonight. What I can share is that these services were being provided in the past under a number of different service providers, and the idea here, so none of without competitively bidding these contracts, because the dollar thresholds issued for smaller, lower thresholds did not require competitive bidding. So what we did this year for the first time was we looked at providing all interpreter services under one agreement for the entire school year. That allowed us to package it into a RFP at a dollar value that we would get competition at, and we competitively bid that for the first time. So we have everything now at a fair market value price, and we're prepared for the entire year without having to contract with a number of different service providers for the same service level.
And I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great process. My only concern would be if we were spending $150,000 and now we've over doubled that, with this contract to have $4,500 or 4,500 hours right there. I don't know if the value would provide, doubling what our previous expenditure was. So that's all.
Yes, I'm gonna, through the chair, I'd like to bring Executive Director of Student Support Services, Mr. Dan Molina, forward to explain his reasoning with providing an RFP for these services.
Good evening. Thank you for your question, Mr. Ponder. So, like Mr. Polk said, what we did was we just consolidated those services. So rather than having professional service contracts with 7 different interpreters and then another separate contract with someone who would do the scheduling for that. So we put it out to RFP because we wanted to consolidate it, have it under one roof. And the 2 agencies that applied are currently agencies that we were currently independent contractors that we've worked with in the past. So the money amount is the same. So if it's $75 per hour is what we were paying last year and the year before, it's the same amount this year. Just consolidates all those services under one professional service contract. The money amount is the same. That helpful?
It is helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Thank you.
Any more discussion? Okay, hearing none. Sorry.
I do have just one follow-up. I mean, it was $75 per hour, and the money amount's the same. Is the total that's being planned in this contract be spent the same as what it has been historically? Yes, it's.
Yeah, we have 6 kids in our district that require these services, so our number of students hasn't changed, the number of service hours hasn't changed, so it'll be about the same amount of money. And actually, we're going to save a little bit in that with one of our students, they were getting intervener services, and we were paying somebody at $75 an hour to provide those services. We're now training someone to be able to provide those services at $20 an hour. So there's going to be a considerable savings with that individual right there.
Thank you. Sorry for the clarification. Just wanted to make sure I was interpreting what you were saying.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just under the project scope, it says that also interpreting for district-wide events such as board meetings, press conferences, and graduations. And hopefully we won't be doing virtual graduations again, but I appreciate the fact that we did have previously those events were interpreted, and I think it has been very helpful and good for the community.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a voice vote. Starting Mr. Ponder.
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
President Birdie.
Yes.
I myself vote yes. And Dr. Wilson?
Yes.
It passes. Next up is item F, American Charter Academy fiscal year 2021 lease extension approval. Got to get a motion in a second.
I move American Charter Academy FY 2021 lease extension approval.
Second.
Do we have an admin report?
Yes, through the chair, we are bringing before the same contract terms and payment terms that the charter school is currently under. We're rolling that over for FY21 with the intent of being able to pay the landlord for rent for American Charter Academy. They have not finalized negotiations with the landlord. However, they have no intent of moving. So right now, I think it's just a matter of the landlord being out of state. The charter school typically handles the negotiations with these contracts, provides them to administration. We are simply trying to get a contract in place so that we can have payment for the full year. If something changes with the contract, we will of course bring it back before the school board for subsequent approval. Thank you.
Okay, do we have public comment? Mr. Haberman.
Haberman, H-A-P-E-R-M-A-N.
Right. Yes.
My name is Eugene Haven. I represent myself and follow the public process. And the public process is an appropriate decision made by the governing body, more like the public interest. I heard the explanation here from the administration as far as the short-term lease. I begin to question it because this is not normal. I know these are not normal times, okay, with the COVID, and that could be the whole reason why it's working this way. So, is this the intent that you go and prove 1 year, and then what is the normal lease? Is it 3 years, 4 years? What's the normal? So I didn't get that information by reading through this thing. It only said an extension, but the shorter one than normal. So it should be, unless I'm in here and I missed it, there should be a clarification when a normal lease is 3, 5 years or whatever, and not come back to you every year for the scenario. Because landlords don't like 1 year leases, they like stability. Because you would like stability too. You're trying to bring all those things back every year, and that doesn't show here as far as clarification of what normal lease is, as far as how many years these schools do, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. And that should be brought out in the second document. And then the clarification is the words were said in here that they expect the word to be the same for an extension after this, but it didn't say it definite. So my question to you is, when is this all going to be done, or are we going to be falling in this time next year with the same response, and you're being told, oh, we didn't have time? So when are they planning to put all that stuff together so we don't fall in this scenario again? Thank you very much. With 1 minute, 17 seconds there.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Seeing none, is there any board discussion? Anybody online?
I have no comment. No comment.
Okay, then we go to a voice vote. Starting with Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
President Berge.
Yes.
I myself vote yes. Dr. Weldon.
Yes.
Member Potter.
Yes.
Measure passes. Moving on to item 8, non-action items. Item A, grade configuration change at Teelan Middle School. Is there an admin report?
Yes, thank you. Administration is requesting the board approve a change to Teelan Middle School's grade configuration from serving grades 6 through 8 to preschool 6, 7, and 8. The preschool program is being recommended for Teelan is currently hosted at Larson Elementary alongside a full-day ABA program. Due to increasing enrollment at Larson Elementary, no longer has the capacity for both programs. So administration is recommending the special education preschool program be relocated to Teelan Middle School. This change will allow parents and students the opportunity to maintain access to the program as it will be located in proximity to where the program was previously housed. According to the State of Alaska Department of Education and Early Development, the commissioner must receive grade change requests in writing prior to the beginning of the student count period for the fiscal year October 2nd, 2020, in order for the school to be considered for funding for those students. So this is simply for the student count period. It is a non-action this evening, and then during the first meeting in August, it will be an action item, and it's for our student count reporting in October during the 20-day count.
Okay, is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, is there any board discussion? Anybody online?
No comment. No comment.
Okay, I have one question. Is there any associated cost increase that goes with this at all, or is it just simply?
No, sir. No cost increase. It's simply a reporting process to the state of Alaska.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, persons to be heard on non-agenda items. You're welcome.
Again, public comment pertaining to education on non-agenda items is limited to 3 minutes per person per meeting. This is the second half, and it's limited to non-agenda items. Your comments should be appropriate for all audiences, including school-aged children.
Do we have anybody for speaking? Mr. Haber.
My name is Eugene Haven. I represent myself. I follow the public process. The public process is an appropriate decision made by the governing body, more like the public interest. I'd like to point out one key thing of your meeting and giving the opportunity to the public to be here. When you're using telephonic and when you restricted telephonic prior to this, we were allowed to have public here for that few meetings. But when you enter that period of only telephonic, that created a situation which created an absence of observance of parties speaking and a failure to provide sufficient procedural safeguards. We were in this COVID, we're still there. You've opened up to some degree and you allow this opportunity. There's a big difference. The public can be able to see you face to face and also see whether you're listening or not, or you're doing something, or you're in the room, or taking out the dog or something. You have one, with respect. So this is a problem. I'd also like to remind you what is happening now. School board in Anchorage, they still have it closed. It's telephonic. They just had a joint meeting last week, the school board in the Anchorage, they was strong meeting with you and Rose Summit, they had one. It was strictly telephonic, closed. That's unbearable because when there's an emergency such as COVID, it's even more important to have a conversation with the people and not less. Because you need to hear from the people before you make a decision. And the people need to hear from you directly. And then I'd like to also point out is we're working in a situation where the governor of state has recommended that we do social distancing and we wear face coverings, but he doesn't even comply with his recommendation, like the Memorial Day ceremony. So what does that say to the public? The state governor is recommending this. The end result is, well, the governor's not going to comply with his own recommendations. How do you expect the public to be willing to do that? And what we're seeing in the Valley particularly, more so in the Valley than in Anchorage, at least I am, is the numbers have gone to almost everyone in many places not wearing this thing. This is the least we can do. And I worry about our future plans because the last few months in closing, we've seen how we've been moving out of, step by step. But the directive from the state, the governor, has been putting out those things that go into effect the next day. Now, how businesses can prepare for that. How can they reopen for that situation? So with all due respect, in closing, we all need to take a part of this and be responsible. And the least we can do is wear face covering. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment? All right, seeing none. Moving on to future items, future business, upcoming meetings, August 5th, 2020 at 6 p.m., regular school board meeting here at the central office. Correspondence and committee reports. Do we have any? Correspondence or committee reports? Seeing none. Now we're to item 12, comments from school board and administration. Mr. Galt?
Assistant Superintendent Spargo.
I don't have any comments, thanks.
I would just like to use my time to share a video that we had for the superintendent's update. I failed to remember to show it during that presentation. Jillian Morrissey, our PIO, has worked hard on this video. It is short video, intentionally, so that it maintains everyone's attention, but it communicates really complex ideas around our recovery efforts and our planning efforts, and it has been shared with staff today. It'll be shared next week with all of our parents, and it'll also be available on the online registration landing page when parents go to register their students, so they'll understand what to expect next school year. So without further ado, Jillian Morrissey's.
2020 has been stressful and life-changing for a lot of our fellow Alaskans, and we at MSBSD want you to know that we are going to great lengths to make sure every one of our students, parents, and staff are safe during this challenging time. That said, during the reopening process for our schools, we are taking precautions and preparing scenarios for the next school year. Here is what you need to know before online registration begins June 29th. The MSBSD is planning for 3 different scenarios for students returning to school in August. Our goal is to have all students that want to attend their brick-and-mortar schools safely attend in person. Our first scenario involves at-school learning. In this scenario, the students will experience school in a traditional manner, including resuming student activities to the fullest extent possible. However, common areas will be adjusted to allow for social distancing in areas such as lunchrooms, buses, hallway passing times, and recess. We will also be using enhanced disinfecting techniques to keep our staff and students in a safe environment. Our next scenario, at-home learning, is an opt-in scenario, as well as our planned response if the virus spreads substantially within a community. At-home learning will be supported by their boundary school or their school of choice, and will engage in online classroom lectures and activities and/or paper and pencil learning resources. Our last scenario is a blended model, which will be a response to public health mandates if a mild/moderate community spread of the virus occurs. This combines both the at-school and at-home learning models in a week-on, week-off basis. For example, the first week of the model will see about half of our students in our school and half at home, and would switch the following week until the community spread subsides and it is safe for all students to return to school. If federal, state, or local health mandates dictate that no students may attend school in person, then all students will have the opportunity to engage in remote learning from home, supported by our teachers and staff. We all know the importance of safety at MSBSD, and we are fully committed to providing that safety alongside your child's education. Remember, online registration opens June 29th. Visit www.matsuk12.us/registration for more information, or call 761-HELP for registration support.
Thank you, Ms. Morrissey. So this is one of those efforts that we're doing to communicate with our public and engage them early in the planning efforts, and I just wanted to present that for the board tonight. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Well done. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the patient with the green blood. Do we have any do we have any comments from the school board? Mr. Ponder.
I just would like to thank for the presentations that were provided today, especially with the return plan and kind of the layout of that. I know that I had heard multiple false narratives that the school board had decided to go to the 50-50 and that it was set in stone. So I really appreciate you correcting that. And I do appreciate all the comments that were provided by the public today. Some diverse comments and different things to look at, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Trimmer.
Just want to wish everyone a happy rest of the year and a good summer, and we'll see you guys in August.
Member Wilton.
I appreciate the efforts that were put into the presentation, especially the last one. That was great. Thank you, Jillian. I thank all the support staff that helps with that. I want to thank the people for coming out tonight and for voicing their concerns. I had not heard all of the concerns before. I've read a few in the letters and things, but had not heard that. I do want to say that there's been community discussion about how our community, how our schools are dealing with the Black Lives Matter situation. And one of the things that I've suggested for people is to look through our policies and see where our policies list diversity, education, and how we handle our situations and what the processes are or problems that people may experience. I want to wish everybody a great July and to be safe out there. Thank you.
President Berge.
So, I would like to wish everybody a safe and productive summer. I wish to thank the staff for the clarification on the startups for the fall. It's interesting, it's going to be dynamic, and it'll probably change 3 or 4 more times before we get to the fall. But I hope not. I hope we can bring some stability into the community and start getting the folks out there a little bit assured of what their school year is going to look like and try to keep it that way. So I hope all of you have a good, productive night, and thank you very much and good day.
And I too would like to thank everybody, the staff, for all the hard work and enjoy your July. Hopefully you get some good fishing, other activities, or parking activities that other activities are fishing. Have a great summer. And the next item on the agenda is item 13A, executive session. Yeah, so Member Trimmer, I did get to you, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item 13A, executive session regarding the MSCA negotiations. Can I get a motion in a second?
I move to go into executive session. Executive session AS 44-62.310 and BP 9321. These are the matters, the immediate knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the government unit, subjects to intended prejudice, the reputation and character of any person, provided that the person may request a public discussion. Matters which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be confidential, matters of confidential legal counsel or pending litigation.
Second. Okay.
In present will be all members of the board, Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations, Luke Volk, Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, Amy Spargo, Executive Director of Human Services, Katie Gardner, and Attorney Saul Friedman.
Okay, since we're going into executive session, anybody who's not part of the meeting will have to ask to leave the room. Thank you very much.
Looks like I'm kicked out.
Okay, so I guess we have to vote to go into executive session. Mr. Bonner.
Yes.
Mr. Trimmer.
Yes.
Mr. Berge.
Yes.
I myself vote yes. Member Wellman.
Yes.
Okay, we are now going into executive session. Sorry about that.
Take care. Can I just mention something, please? No? I just thought something, I would have beneficial information. Yeah.
We'll see you.
Give me just a second. I'll give a final montage here for you all.
One in the beginning and one in the end.
I don't know, I don't come to these shit shows.
I know. Be
That's what it
safe.
is.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us here tonight. The Matsu School Board School District's meeting, talking and discussing what the next year's school district is going to look like. Possibility of a blended 50-50. possibility of coming to school at 100%. Another possibility is going to 100% online learning. It all depends upon where the COVID stands at the time when it comes time for school. They don't plan on giving any real announcement until just like a week or two before school is supposed to start. Don't hesitate to share this. I would like to point out one thing, that if our school district is planning on having this COVID compliant schooling going on like they're claiming and cleaning everything up and split 50-50, take a fine example of today when everybody went up to give testimony and they had to press the button for the microphone. If we were supposed to be COVID compliant and following CDC standards, there should have been somebody designated to do that for everybody instead of each individual person walking up and pressing the button themselves. We have approximately 20 people today that have a possibility of having the COVID virus transferred directly to them by each person having to touch the button. They've kicked us out of the borough meeting so that they can go into their own executive discussion on their own without the public being any knowledge of what's going on. Again, thank you all for watching tonight. Don't forget to share. Facebook squeals on you if you don't share. Have a great evening. And don't forget, Senator Shower had his meeting tonight on Facebook Live to discuss the binding caucus and the corruption happening in Juneau. I'll be Facebook watching that in just a little while. Thank you all.